press conference is fighting for freedom, defending people's rights against mandatory digital certificate. I would like to introduce my new colleague, Stasio Jekeliuno from Lithuania. He's part of the Greens, and after plenty of research, he has a lot of information that he would like to share with us.
Thank you, Christian, and hello, everyone. I've been researching what I call COVID puzzle since May of last year, 2020. There are a number of aspects. Origin of COVID virus related to that dangerous experiments on pathogens called gain-of-function experiments and other areas. But one specific area which I would think I'm more qualified than in other areas is statistics data. We all know how important is reliable and comparable across member states data to make policy decisions, especially such a difficult and complex policy decisions with restriction of freedoms, of movements, etc., etc. So, three institutions responsible for statistical information in the European Union, and I'm a member of ECON, which is responsible for the parliamentary scrutiny of statistical systems. That's Eurostat, the Statistical Governance Advisory Body, and also ECDC, European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control. I talked as a member of ECON to all of them. All of them, three of them, confirmed that the only reliable and comparable data related to COVID is excess mortality. Now, based on the database of Euromomo, which is a Danish data system, excess mortality is normal since the end of this year, end of February, sorry. So there is no, based on this data, no pandemic anymore. There are fluctuations, there are notification rates, but case notification rates are not exact data, is not relevant enough for these decisions. So especially for children, there is no mortality, excess mortality, never during this pandemic. So when the decisions are made to introduce COVID passes in Lithuania next month, the COVID pass will be introduced mandatory for 12-year-olds. There is no ground for that at all. So I'm worried that data is manipulated. I have a degree in business. I worked in insurance, with actuaries, with mathematicians. I have a degree in psychology too, which works with how people think, how they make decisions. So the manipulation of data, witting or unwitting manipulation data, is a very, very strong case here during the COVID. So I urge the European Parliament, European Commission and Member States to look at the recent recommendation of ECDC, European Centre for Disease Control and Prevention, dated 18th of October. COVID-19 surveillance guidance transition from COVID-19 emergency surveillance to routine surveillance of respiratory pathogens. For me, the most important part is in page number 4, where they recommend to define case of COVID-19 as follows. Clinical criteria, acute respiratory infection or influenza-like illness. I think that's for doctors to diagnose this illness. Second criteria, laboratory criteria, detection of SARS-CoV-2 nucleic acid in a clinical specimen. That's a PCR test and some other tests. And the most important part, confirmed COVID case, any person meeting clinical criteria and the word "and" is in capital letters, laboratory criteria. So we have to use this recent recommendation in our decisions, in our strategies for COVID certificates and for other decisions in order to understand that we don't have such an acute pandemic as we had a year ago or so. The example of recent weekend across Europe is an example. If the politicians don't do their proper job, if institutions, European institutions fail, people will go to the streets, and they are going to the streets already. So they have to fight for their rights. But I think it's dangerous because the extremists can exploit that. So the institutions, the politicians have to represent and ensure that there is no data abuse. The data should be used as minimum as possible. The data should be deleted whenever it's collected and used for whatever purposes. So I don't know how my COVID certificate data is processed. I cannot see that. So I don't want that to be a again in the Parliament and across Europe. As I tried to indicate in my brief presentation, the pandemic basically is over. So all these restrictions, including the national or international or European certificates, are not needed anymore. Of course, we have to take care of our hygiene. Of course, I'm not saying there is no COVID, but there is no need, there is no data that shows that these certificates are needed anymore. So we have to stop that right now.